Kody Brown, a star of Sister Wives, and Meri Brown's son Leon were in a horrific vehicle accident. The terrible accident hurt Leon very badly. Doctors say he has a broken rib in his chest, but thankfully his injuries are not life-threatening. They also say it will take some time for Leon to fully recover and that he will need to rest entirely. In the meantime, his mother, Meri Brown, is heartbroken. She is quite worried about how her lone child is doing. Meri said, "He means everything to me. All I can do is pray that he gets better soon." The whole family is with Leon, and fans are praying and hoping for a quick recovery. Meri Brown's calm was broken by a terrible phone call on a tranquil morning in Flagstaff. "Leon has been in a car accident." The words rang in her ears like thunder. She stopped breathing. She didn't ask any questions or pack a bag. She just ran. She was in her car and heading for the hospital in just a few minutes, barely able to see through her tears. Leon, her only child, was driving home from a friend's house when a truck ran a red light and hit his car on the driver's side. The force had smashed the front door, breaking glass and steel like paper. The paramedics got there fast and took him to the nearest trauma center. Meri's mind went over and over again every memory: Leon's first steps, his graduation, and the deep talks they had. "He's everything to me," she muttered as she sat next to his hospital bed and held his wounded hand gently. There were tubes and machines all around them, but all she could see was her child's pale face and shallow breathing. After a few tense hours, the doctor's report came in. Leon received a lot of injuries, but the worst one was a shattered rib that was dangerously close to puncturing his lung. "He is stable and we are hopeful," the doctor stated with a smile. "But he will need to rest and get better completely. It's going to be a long road ahead." Meri nodded, and tears fell silently. As word got out, each member of the Brown family came to the hospital. Even Kody, who was often kept apart by stress and conflicting loyalties, hurried in, looking pale and disturbed. For once, the drama that usually tore the family apart went away. Christine brought cookies and a blanket she had made by hand. Janelle brought vitamins and literature. Robin, who is sometimes said to be distant, sat quietly next to Meri and prayed. Fans began to assemble outside the hospital. There were waves of flowers and homemade cards sent. There were a lot of supportive messages on social media, and by nightfall, "Pray for Leon" was trending. "Dear Leon, the world is brighter with you in it," said one card. "Keep fighting." Meri stayed with Leon in the hospital room every hour. "Do you remember the tree house we made?" she said softly while running her fingers through his hair. "You fell and sobbed, but then you got back up. You always get back up." Days went by. Leon started to wake up slowly. His first words were hoarse. "Mom, am I going to be okay?" Meri broke down and hugged him hard. "Yes, baby. You're going to be more than fine. You will sparkle again." Not only did Leon's healing path become a story of strength for him, but also for the whole family. The women, who didn't always get along, started chatting more, checking in on Meri, cooking meals for her, and taking turns at the hospital. Kody, for once, was humble and cared for all of his women equally. He realized that his son's anguish had made him see what was really important. Leon was getting better slowly, but surely. He was finally able to walk with support weeks later, and on the day he left the hospital, fans lined the street to applaud. He waved and said, "Thank you all," in a tired but happy voice. This tragedy made me remember that love still connects us, no matter how broken a family is. Leon got well after his accident, and so did our hearts. And for the first time in years, the Brown family was really united. They realized that this chapter, which came from grief, had planted the seeds of healing. Sometimes a storm is needed to clear the air. But the sun had just come up over the Arizona desert, and its golden rays fell over Meri's small new house. Now, instead of the noise of a big polygamous family or the background conversation of wives and kids, there was only the sound of silence. Only quietness. In Season 19, Episode 13 of Sister Wives, Meri Brown wakes up to her new existence, which is all by herself. Meri had taken a brave choice: to move on after years of emotional ups and downs, feeling like an outsider in the Brown family and being subtly isolated. She had finally gotten away from the craziness of Cody's mixed feelings and Robin's lies. Meri knew it was time to pick herself when Christine was gone and Janelle was setting her own limits. This episode is focused on how she changed, both physically and mentally. She has moved into a quaint two-bedroom cottage in Flagstaff, which is far from the family's land. There isn't a big revelation or a dramatic showdown, just quiet bravery. Meri starts the show by unpacking boxes that say books, linens, and mom's things. She stops to unwrap a picture of her mother, who has passed away, and carefully puts it on the fireplace. She says in the confessional, "I don't know what this life will be like, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm living it for myself." Meri runs into an old friend, Bonnie, who owns a little cafe in the area. They discuss about company ideas, empowerment retreats, and starting again at 50 while they drink lattes. Meri gets excited when she talks about her idea of turning her Utah B&B into a place where other women may come to recover and find themselves again. "I waited so long to be picked. Now I choose me." Cody calls to check in, but it's a rare and tense call. Cody: "So, you really aren't coming back for the meeting with the family?" Meri: "Cody, I am the family. My family is me now." The call concludes in a strange way. Cody shrugs in his confession, seeming very upset. Meri has been alone for years. She just made it official. Meri invites a small group of women to her backyard for a private gathering. They are all divorcees, single moms, or other people who have been through spiritual desertion. With fairy lights hanging above and laughing in the air, we see a new side of Meri. She is calm, confident, and friendly. She reads a little part of her journal. Strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed and saying, "I'm still here." Meri stands at the window with a cup of tea and watches the sun set as the episode comes to an end. She has a soft grin on her lips. "Meri, for the first time in my life, I'm not someone's wife, second wife, or afterthought. My name is Meri, and that's all there is to it." But after years of heartache, fighting, and changing alliances, the Brown family was about to start a new chapter full of uncertainty, hope, and maybe even redemption. Christine had left the plural marriage almost a year ago. Janelle was living alone and making her life in Flagstaff, while Meri had been on a long, hard journey to find her voice again. Robin was still with Cody, but she was quiet, guarded, and unsure if her loyalty had earned her a future or just loneliness. But one spring morning, everything altered in a way that no one saw coming. Cody got a letter with no return address or signature. The sentences inside were short yet strong. "Families are not built on control, but connection. If you want to rebuild, start over, not as a husband, but as a father, a friend, and a listener." No one ever found out who wrote it, but it really hurt Cody. For the first time in years, he took a big breath and understood that he had lost more than just wives. He had also lost his role as a father to many of his children, who now lived far away and were afraid of him. Cody convened a family meeting that night. Everyone was surprised when all 4 wives, both current and former, showed up. Christine came with Truly, who was full of life and confidence. Janelle came with 2 of her older sons, who were hesitant but curious. Meri came alone, wearing a deep green dress that she had said represented new beginnings. Robin stayed quiet, holding a mug of tea and looking unreadable. Cody stood before them, not as a leader, not as a husband giving declarations, but as a man damaged and seeking rehabilitation. He said, "I've made mistakes," and his voice broke. "Too many. I forgot why we chose this life in the first place. I don't expect to fix it overnight, but I'm asking, will you help me build something better, not for me, but for all of us?" There was a long pause. Christine then spoke. "I left because I needed peace. But I never stopped caring about this family. If this is real and you're really ready to let go of control and learn again, I'm willing to help." Janelle agreed. "We need limits and honesty. But yes, I'm open to seeing where this could go." Meri's eyes filled with tears. "I've been waiting for this, for you to see us as people, not just parts of your plan. I'll give this a chance. Robin, who is used to silence, muttered, "We've all changed. Maybe we can learn how to be something new." What happened next was surprising. Instead of trying to bring back the old structure of plural marriage, the Browns chose to document their individual journeys, their healing, and their efforts to reconnect as a modern family. TLC was interested in this change and offered to film a new season, this time not focusing on drama and marriages, but on healing, communication, and redefining what family means. The title was Sister Wives, A New Chapter. Each episode focused on a different member of the Brown family. Meri opened her own retreat center for women who had been spiritually abused. Janelle worked on a community garden project and reconnected with her kids. Christine got ready to marry someone new while still valuing her co-parenting relationship with Cody, and Robin learned to let go of fear and be more honest. Cody? He took a step back. He listened. He went to therapy. He attempted to be a better father than he had been a husband. The whole family, kids, ex-wives, and friends got together in a big, open field for the season finale. There were no cameras, only drone footage of kids chasing fireflies and people laughing and hugging. A new chapter had begun. Not one that was forced on them by tradition or duty, but one that was chosen, respected, and full of optimism. And this time, they weren't faking it. But Meri Brown's quiet backyard is lit up by the soft golden light of an Arizona morning in Season 19, Episode 16 of Sister Wives. Birds chirp, but the calm outside doesn't match the emotional storm that Meri has been going through for months. This episode marks a turning point, a symbolic change that fans have been waiting to see for a long time. For years, Meri had been in the background of the plural marriage, often pushed aside, misunderstood, or just forgotten by Cody and the rest of the family. But now, a quiet strength is starting to grow inside her. The episode starts with Meri visiting an old antique store just outside Flagstaff, which is full of things from the past, just like her own life. She finds a small, hand-carved wooden key while looking through ancient books, vintage jewelry, and homemade quilts. She asks the shopkeeper about it, and the elderly woman laughs and replies, "It's not for a real lock. It stands for something. A key to new beginnings." Meri buys it right away. The wooden key is the main symbol of the episode. That afternoon, Meri has a small gathering in her backyard with only close friends and her daughter Leon on video call. No Cody, no other wives, just people who have been there for her emotionally. She holds the key in her hand and gives a quiet but powerful speech. "This key," she says, "might not open a door constructed of wood or metal, but it does open a door inside me. For years, I've stayed in places where I wasn't respected, waiting, hoping, and putting up with it. But I've now figured out that I don't need to wait for someone to tell me I may go forward. There are hugs, clapping, and tears. It's a strong moment of self-assertion. Not one of wrath, but of self-respect." Later in the episode, we see Meri packing boxes. She's not moving away from her life completely. She's moving to her bed and breakfast in Utah. Lizzie's Heritage Inn has always been her safe haven, and now she's making it her official second home. The camera shows her loading a small suitcase, putting the symbolic key on top, and whispering to herself, "I choose me." Cody, on the other hand, reacts as he usually does, with a mix of surprise and defensiveness. He tells the camera, "I didn't expect her to make moves like this. I thought she was still committed." But it's evident that he doesn't mean what he says. This time, Meri doesn't glance back. The episode ends with Meri standing on a hilltop near her in Utah. The wind blows through her hair. She smiles, and she wears a wooden key around her neck on a leather cord. The camera slowly pulls back, showing her as a strong but alone person who is finally free to rewrite her story. In this made-up episode, Meri doesn't just walk away. She gets up. By doing this, she shows viewers that healing doesn't always start with leaving others. Sometimes it starts with ultimately choosing yourself. But Savannah Brown had been looking forward to this day for years, her high school graduation. It was a big deal, a symbolic end to one chapter, and a hopeful start to another. She had imagined walking across the stage, Hearing her name echo through the auditorium and seeing her whole family beaming with pride from the front row. But nothing ever went smoothly for the Browns. There was a lot of stress in the days leading up to graduation. Janelle, Savannah's mother, had been in charge of everything, from seating arrangements to invitations to a small after-party at a local venue. She wanted this day to be perfect for her daughter, especially after everything the family had been through with Cody and the other wives not getting along. Janelle had reached out to Cody, Robin, Meri, and Christine by inviting them. She knew they weren't getting along, but she hoped they could put their differences aside for Savannah, even if it was just for one day. But that hope would soon fall apart. Cody called Janelle 2 days before the ceremony. He stated in a cold voice, "I'm not sure I can come, Janelle. Robin's kids have a recital that day," and Janelle's anger boiled over. "Cody, this is your daughter's graduation. She needs you there. She deserves your support." Cody, on the other hand, didn't say anything. Robin, who was standing next to him, murmured something in his ear. Whatever it was, it made Cody sigh and reply, "I'll think about it." Savannah heard the news, and her heart fell. "He always has an excuse," she said to Janelle. "Why do I even try?" Janelle clutched her firmly to keep herself from falling apart. It was graduation day, and the auditorium was full. Janelle sat proudly in the front row with Christine and her kids, as well as Meri, who surprised everyone by coming alone. Her modest presence showed that she was with Savannah. Cody and Robin were, however, clearly missing. Savannah looked around at the crowd before going on stage. She forced a grin. When her name was called, Savannah Brown, she tried to appear strong, but deep down, she missed her father more than she wanted to admit. People clapped as Janelle wiped away a tear. Her face showed a mix of pride and anguish. The ambience at the little after-party that night was happy but tight. Christine gave Savannah a passionate speech, calling her a shining light in a stormy family, and Meri gave her a handcrafted diary as a gift. Cody strolled in shortly before the cake was cut. He had come alone, late, and in an awkward way. Everyone was looking at him. Savannah, who was standing next to her cake, froze. Cody walked up carefully and said, "I'm sorry I'm late." Savannah looked him in the eyes and said, "You missed it. I had things to do, but I got here as soon as I could." "You always have obligations," she remarked, her voice breaking. "You chose them again." Cody didn't protest this time. He just stood there and looked at his daughter, understanding how much he had missed, not just the ceremony, but years of being there. Janelle jumped in. "You can't keep expecting her to be happy with little bits of attention. She's grown up, Cody. She's not a little girl waiting for you to say it's okay." Cody bowed his head and said, "I'm sorry." No one could say if it was real or just too little too late. The celebration went on, but it was quieter. The folks who came still loved it. Savannah tweeted a picture of herself in a cap and gown with her brothers and mothers later that night. The message read, "Family isn't the last person to show up. It's the one who's been there for you all along." The message went viral among Sister Wives followers. For many, it was a strong reminder that graduation is more than just a ceremony. It's a way to see who's really there for you. It was more than a milestone for Savannah Brown. It was a proclamation of independence. But Meri Brown stepped out of her bed and breakfast and into the cold breeze of Flagstaff. She held a warm mug of coffee in her hands. The mountains in the distance loomed tall, showing her how strong she was, something she was striving to find again within herself. It had been almost a year since she and Cody had broken up emotionally. The announcement shocked the fanbase, but anyone who had been following their journey closely knew this was coming. The laughter had stopped years ago, replaced by awkward silences, unmet expectations, and too many broken apologies. But now that the official end was behind them, both Meri and Cody were navigating unfamiliar territory, life after each other. Meri was no longer the quiet, longing wife who was waiting for someone to pay attention to her. The breakup had awakened something deep inside her. She worked hard to make her Lizzie's Heritage Inn, a popular place for women like her, those who were rediscovering themselves after heartbreak, to have retreats, healing workshops, and storytelling nights. She also began to travel more. Meri went on spiritual retreats and wrote in the desert stillness from Sedona to Santa Fe. She even started writing a biography called Becoming Meri, My Truth Beyond Plural Marriage. Meri's growth wasn't just about getting well, it was also about getting her voice back. She created an online series called Meri Talks Real, in which she talked about her emotional issues, how she felt invisible in her marriage, and how she restored her confidence. Cody, on the other hand, wasn't as fast to move on. Even though he had frequently acted emotionally detached from Meri, he couldn't stop thinking about their early days together, when Meri was his first love and the only person who believed in him before anyone else knew his name. Cody's previously strong family system was falling apart like dry earth in a drought. Christine was gone, and Janelle was emotionally distant. Robin was still his best friend, but even she could see how Cody often stared into space with a distant, heavy look on his face. Cody stopped on a picture of him and Meri holding their newborn Leon while looking through an old family photo album. His chest tightened. They were so young and full of hope. He traced the picture with his fingers, and a lump formed in his throat. For the first time in years, he admitted to himself that he had failed her long before she left. Months later, the people who made Sister Wives set up a special part where Meri and Cody would sit down and talk to each other one-on-one. No cameras, no scripts, just real talk. It was risky, but both consented. They met in a quiet cabin outside of Flagstaff. Meri strolled in with confidence, wearing a turquoise necklace she'd bought on a solo trip to Taos. Cody looked apprehensive, older, his once flamboyant hair now stained with gray. The discourse started out stiff and full of polite small talk. But over time, the walls began to break down. "I used to wait for you to look at me the way you used to," Meri whispered softly. "I waited for years, Cody." He glanced down and said, "I know. I just didn't know how to be what you needed." "You didn't try," she said, not angrily, but as a matter of fact. There was a lengthy stillness. Then Cody looked up with tears in his eyes and said, "I wish I had. I wish I had fought harder for you." Meri smiled softly. "But I'm glad you didn't. Losing you helped me find myself." After the meeting, they didn't get back together. They didn't need to. But something had changed. They started talking to each other every now and then, text messages about Leon and news about family events. There was respect now and a calm distance. Cody worked on fixing what was left of his connections with his kids, gently coming to terms with the fact that his emotional absence had hurt more than just his spouses. Meri, on the other hand, finished her book and announced a book tour. Someone in Utah asked her, "Do you still love Cody?" She smiled and said, "I love who he was to me. I don't love who he became. But I'm thankful because that journey made me the woman I am today." Not all breakups are bad in the world of Sister Wives. Some are necessary, and some are the start of a journey of self-discovery. For Cody and Meri, their post-breakup chapter wasn't about revenge or bitterness. It was about growing, forgiving, and finally letting go of a dream that was no longer meant to be. They were no longer married, but they had found something just as rare in their separation: tranquility. But the Brown family was anything but calm during the hot summer in Flagstaff. The big cul-de-sac that was supposed to symbolize unity had turned into a battleground of silence, unspoken resentment, and emotional distance. The main problem was the growing tension between Meri Brown and the other wives, as well as with Cody Brown, the man who had promised them all spiritual equality. The sunlight made beautiful golden lines through the blinds in Meri's living room as she sat silently. She looked through old images on her phone, family vacations, sister wives' holidays, and the early days of laughing, unity, and turmoil. But those days felt like they were in another lifetime. Lately, she had become more of an observer than a participant in the family. Robin's influence over Cody had grown strong, subtle, and unending. Christine was long gone. She had left the polygamous lifestyle with her head held high. Janelle was distant but polite, mostly focused on her adult children and her own independence. But Meri? Meri was stuck between keeping a promise and wanting to be free from a life that no longer fed her soul. Cody didn't talk to her much anymore. When he did, it was short and to the point. The closeness had vanished long ago, but the indifference that was left hurt much more. Robin tried to keep up the appearance of peace even though she knew things were getting worse. She set up weekly family dinners, insisted on family meetings, and spoke in a calm voice that only made things worse. But deep down, she knew she was the main wife, the one Cody listened to and lived with all the time. During a tense family meeting in Robin's living room one night, Meri finally spoke out. Cody had once again ignored her worries about money and cut her off in the middle of a sentence. "I'm still part of this family, Cody," she replied firmly, her eyes set on him. "You can't choose when I matter." Everyone in the room stopped talking. Robin stopped moving. Janelle turned aside. Cody let out a heavy sigh. He yelled, "You chose to distance yourself, Meri. You emotionally divorced yourself from me a long time ago." "That may be," she said, shaking but proud. "But I never left the family. You all just stopped treating me like I belonged." The fallout happened quickly. Robin cried, Janelle went early shaking her head, and Meri, for the first time in years, felt something new, a strange mix of sadness and freedom. Meri packed a bag that night. She wasn't leaving for good. She was just taking back her space, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. She booked a cabin in the mountains, far away from Flagstaff and the sounds of broken promises. Before she went, she wrote a letter to each wife. She wrote to Janelle, "You were always the strong one who didn't say much. I hope you find your peace, like I'm finding mine." To Robin, "I don't blame you, but I hope you understand that love shouldn't come at the expense of other people's dignity." To Cody, "I loved you with all my heart, but that love wasn't meant to keep you locked up. Goodbye for now." The family hardly talked for weeks. But then something unexpected happened. Robin was shaken by what Meri said and started to think. She asked Meri to coffee, not as co-wives, but as women who had once shared a dream. Janelle also reached out. Slowly, the women began to build a relationship that didn't involve Cody. For the first time, they saw each other clearly, not as rivals, but as survivors of a broken system. Meri was different when she came back to town. She smiled more, laughed more, and even talked about opening a retreat center for women who were leaving polygamous relationships to help them recover instead of being angry. And Cody? He watched everything happen from the sidelines. He was once in the middle of it all, but now he was lost in the consequences of his actions. The relationships between the wives had altered for good. No longer defined by one man's attention, the ladies began to define themselves by something much stronger. Their own value. And with that new freedom, each of them, especially Meri, started a new chapter that didn't need Cody's permission to do well. Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome to my channel. I'm Sabrina, and I hope your day is going well. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel.